Right before we jump into this video, if you'd like me to send you this free guide to capturing motion in low light situations, just look for this orange box over on the website, put your name, email address in it, hit send it, and I will send you that guide for free. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and yesterday I took the Sony A9 II out to Conowingo Dam, which is in Maryland, where a lot of eagles like to fly and hunt. So a lot of nature and bird photographers go out there in the winter to try and capture these birds swooping down and picking up fish out of the water. Now I use the A9 II, like I said, along with the 200 to 600 millimeter f5.6 to 6.3 because you need a lot of reach when you're trying to capture these birds flying at a distance. With that being said, let me remind you, you can download sample RAW files. They are raw DNGs that are converted from the ARW files from the Sony, because Adobe Lightroom currently doesn't allow you to open those RAW files. I have a beta converter that allowed me to open them, so it's not the full version. There may be some changes in the future from Adobe, but really, can it be that different from the A9 to the A9 II, being that it's the same sensor? Maybe, because of the different processor or the updated processor in the A9 II. Now the link is down below, so you can click on that to download the sample RAW files, so you can pixel peep them, look at them, edit them, and see what you think about the files. And right before I get into the images, I do want to paint the picture of the weather. It was like 34, 35 degrees, 15 to 20 mile per hour wind gusts, and mostly rain and some snow throughout the entire time that we were there, from 5 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. But now let's jump into some of the keeper shots. So the first shot that we see here was done at 1/1000th of a second, f6.3 ISO 1250 out at 600 millimeters. Now, I am at 1/1000th of a second because the birds are flying and I want to freeze that action. And if it's too slow, you may get some blur of the wings, or I actually don't like when it's raining and you get some really big blur of the drops falling. I'm not a big fan of that personally, but in order to get that 1/1000th of a second at 6.3, I have to bump that ISO up slightly higher, but my exposure for this one was spot on. And I do want to let you know that I did use from FroPack 1 Skittles with one click to edit this photo as well as this photo and the one after it. So just look at this. You see the rain falling? So you've got the eagle right here at 600 millimeters. I didn't crop it. I know a lot of you guys like to crop your nature photos. Still, I personally don't. I think an 800 millimeter lens would have been really good in this situation, but how many people have 800 millimeter lenses? Unless you have a 400 2.8 that you put a 2x converter on, then you have an 800 5.6, and then you're limited to that 800 millimeter and you still may miss some of the shots. I like this shot. I like this shot with the bird just turning the eagle this way, and it looks nice and sharp. The tones and the colors look perfectly fine. Moving on to the next shot, I do want to let you know that the rain let up for maybe 45 minutes, but in that time, there weren't a lot of birds flying. There weren't a lot of eagles just coming out and hunting. So a lot of the time spent there is waiting and waiting and waiting, and then when you like walk away for a second, that's when a bird swoops down out of nowhere to catch a fish and you just missed it. So I didn't text, I wasn't on my phone, I was just ready for a bird to come out of the sky and hopefully capture it. But the AF for this stuff was fantastic, and I'm about to show you 114 photos where it just tracked really well. I like this photo. If we go in 3:1, because I know some people say, oh, it's grainy, it's noisy. This is a 24 megapixel camera, not a 61 megapixel where 3:1 looks really amazing when you are using an A7R4. In this case, I filled the frame as best as I could at 600 millimeters while tracking the subject. And I want to point out this, which is an eagle shot with the Sony A9 with the same 200 to 600, 5.6 to 6.3 at 1000 ISO, whereas the other one was at 1250 ISO, and everything is pretty close. Now I want to zoom in just to show you that when you fill the frame, you're going to see less issues. That's because you're filling the frame. And there are some people that commented on one of the photos that I posted on Instagram and said, I would have gotten closer. That's great. If you were there, you would realize you can't get closer in many situations, and you don't know where the bird is going to be. Now, this is really what I want to talk about. This is terrible composition. Like, Jared, how did you end up cutting not even doing a good job with the bird? It's down at the bottom of the frame. Well, before I show you why that's the case, let me just tell you how amazing the lock-on tracking AF was for photographing birds. The fact that the bird will come into the scene, you find it, and then it just tracks it completely. The green box stays on the bird, even if there's power lines in the background, even if there's rain or snow. For me, it did a fantastic job, and the reason that the composition is off in this one, and check this out, in the next one, look at this, the next couple, like, Jared, how'd you mess up so bad by cutting the bird off? Yeah, great question, but the other point is that it actually focused on the bird at the very bottom of the frame. Does that mean that this is better than a DSLR in this situation? I think so, because a DSLR would have never been able to track this bird to the bottom of the frame because there's no focusing points down there. Whereas in the A9 II, you have autofocusing points covering, what, 93+% of the entire viewfinder? That's how this bird was able to be there and be in focus right there, even though the composition is bad. But let me roll a clip, because I had the EVF being recorded the whole time, so you can see exactly what I was dealing with to capture this sequence of images. Did you see that? Did you see how fast all of that happens? So what happens is somebody's like, there's a bird. Like, there's one, and then you quickly have to look for it. But if I was zoomed out to 600 millimeters, I would have never been able to spot it to at least lock on and have a chance of tracking it. So that's why I pulled back to 300 millimeters or so to find the bird, then to zoom in a little and track it. But I didn't know where it was gonna go, and then all of a sudden it just dive bombs and then goes and grabs the fish. So check it out. We just keep going here. Out of nowhere, it just goes down here, and then I'm able to get the composition a little better. Would I have liked to have been at 600 millimeters the entire time? Absolutely. But it happens so fast that you can't be like, I would have done this if I was in that situation. Did I even mention that I'm hand-holding the whole time? I am hand-holding under a tent, there's raindrops falling, there's snow coming, and I'm hand-holding and tracking and zooming and focusing at the same time. Thankfully, the camera is doing all of the focusing because it's locking on and it's tracking, and I can just try and focus on the composition. Since I mentioned that I edited one of these images with Skittles, the image that you're seeing on the screen right now was edited using some presets from FroPack 1 as well as FroPack 2. If you're looking to speed up your RAW workflow or give yourself some great starting points, we just released FroPack 2 with 15 new custom Lightroom presets that you can play with over at froknowsphoto.com/FroPack2. While you're over there, you can play with the sliders to see the befores and the afters, and if you decide they're for you, they are on sale for 40% off. But if you don't have FroPack 1 just yet, you can get FroPack 1 and FroPack 2 as a bundle and save even more. Now let's jump back into the next image. In this case, we can see the bird is coming for this fish right here in the corner. It's going for it, and it grabs it. I do want to say that I was shooting uncompressed raw 14-bit, which is 12 frames a second. In order to get 20 frames a second, you have to go into compressed raw, which then dumps it down to 12-bit, but gives you those 20 frames a second. I chose not to do that because 12 frames is really fast, but in certain situations where there's like massive action that you want to be able to go in and pick the best of the best with Honor Sir, in that case, you can then use the compressed raw 12-bit and get more frames so that you capture the image that you want to capture versus missing it. So check it out. It's tracking, look, it picked it up. You can zoom in here and see that. So the autofocus is just going the whole time. Like I said, I must have zoomed a little wider because it's just happening so fast. You have very little time to react. And the fact that it dropped out of the sky and I was able to finally acquire it and then get the composition even better, well, it could have been a little better, but to get the bird in the middle of the frame and be able to track it hand-holding the whole time is a testament to the autofocus capability in the camera and also my ability to do all of those things at once. It just comes with practice, and I don't even shoot birds very often. It's just that you have to get used to it. You hold it, you find it, you track it, you trust the camera for the autofocus, and you go. But check this out, the bird stops to look back to make sure it has it, and you're like, yep, you got the fish, buddy. And then I just figured, why not just keep shooting for the test purposes and just keep going through, 114 of these eagle shots. Now, it was a couple of bursts, but along the same line in the same couple of seconds apart. So it's the same bird. And look at this. Now, keep in mind that these images, these 114, aren't fully edited. I just put on some tweaks for exposure, and they are this one's at 2500 ISO, 1/1250th of a second, because it got super dark as it was snowing. You can see the snow flying in the sky, and it still was able to track this eagle flying and flying, and flying eagles fly, unlike the eagles on Sunday, because they lost and they really were terrible. But these eagles finally came out every once in a while. But look, it's still tracking all the way through. Now, normally I wouldn't keep shooting like this, but to test out the camera, I did, and it didn't miss. That's 114 shots in a row, going from one shot to the next shot. It's like 4 seconds. It's like 10, 12, 15 seconds total. So it's like a burst, and then keep tracking, and a burst. You don't have to be shooting, but the camera is continually tracking. So the point of this video is to give you the raw files to play with, to see what you think about them. Remember, they are from a beta converter, so that may change in the future when I use just the ARW files. But for now, I thought it was important to get you some of these files to play with, to see what you think about them, as well as share with you what it looks like when this bird is coming out of the sky, how fast it happens, and how fast you need to react, and also trust that the camera's autofocus, the lock-on tracking, is going to do well. I don't think a DSLR is going to keep up and acquire it just like I was able to do with the A9 II. Now, that's not saying that you can't do it with a DSLR. Plenty of people do it. But to have the ability to have it focus on a bird that's on the edge of the frame, actually halfway out of the frame, and acquire it, lock onto it, and then have me move and keep following it for another 114 shots, is pretty damn amazing. I will have more videos on the A9 II. I did shoot a concert, and I want to share with you a warning in the future about shooting concerts with mirrorless cameras, and I will be hopefully taking it out to a football game, a college football game, to test it even further in an action environment. So thank you guys very much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or comments down below. Jared, PolinFroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.